Hello and welcome to another version of the Twin Fusion Show. My name is Christy Peters and this is my twin sister, Kathy.
Hello.
And we discuss politics and spiritual things and how they are related. And today we're going to be talking about draining the swamp. As many of you know, President Trump that was one of the points that he ran on. He promised us that he would get rid of corruption in the government and special interest corruption and the ties between senators and large corporations. Right. So we're going to hold him to that. We were a little disappointed that he didn't get everything that he wanted with the Obamacare bill. Hopefully they can resubmit that next year and carve a little more off of that. But for some of our friends that watch our show don't really follow politics that much, so I'm going to explain a little bit about how, just a little bit quickly about how Washington works. What happens is you have large corporations that want favors and things done and legislation made for them in Congress. So what they do, they find a mediator, a consultant they call them, and they find a senator that would vote for what this large corporation wants. And if they can find one, then that large corporation then pays the senator very much and pays the consultant very much, who makes the alignment, and they all are happily living in Chevy Chase and sending their kids to private schools. So what's wrong with that is that my sister and I both agree that anymore politicians aren't representing their people at all. They're not representing their true constituents on the ground in the cities and counties and districts that they actually represent. They're more interested. I think a lot of people go to Washington. It seems like more and more. It used to be a smaller number. Now it's probably everybody. They go to Washington not to make a difference and not to represent people that they work for, but to make money and make sure that they have a higher paying job when they get out of politics, and it's kind of a networking opportunity for them to establish their careers globally, nationally, multinationally, things like that. That's what it's become. Now, there's a certain level of corruption with that because it's the highest. You pay to play, basically. It's the highest bidder gets what they want, and that's not fair. And Donald Trump said in his inauguration address that this is the first time, probably since in the history of the U.S. Constitution, that the government was actually going to be given back to the people, and that he was just a representative of the people's will, of the majority of the people's will. So we're going to hold him to that, and I know he really meant it. I know it's a little difficult to get things done in Congress, but especially by those who it's in their interest to keep the system just as it is, and it's not so easy. But Trump is stripping Washington of its raison d'etre and its modus operandi and its livelihood, really. I mean, these consultants are going to have to go somewhere else to make their deals, rather than just prey on our senators and congressmen. So anyway, Kathy, I want you to talk about Trump's 5-point ethics reform, some of the things that he's decided he's going to do to help drain the swamp.
Okay. Well, he had I know in one of his speeches, he had 5 points that he was going to use for ethics reform, draining the swamp in D.C. One was a 5-year ban on executive branch executives being able to lobby and, after they're out and make poo-poo bucks that way. The second one was he wants Congress to pass a ban, instituting a ban on lobbying for former members of Congress and their staff. They make big money off of that as well. He wanted to expand this is the best one. He wanted to expand the definition of lobbying to close the loopholes that former government officials use by labeling themselves as consultants and advisors, and they get away with murder. So he's expanding the definition of lobbying to these consultants and advisors who are, like what Chrissy said before, are making a mint off of, Washington works in a system that doesn't represent the people. It's all about the power structure. and them feeding each other. And it ends up not really being about governing, and governing for the people. But one thing I did want to add, Christy, was that there's a fellow going around. He's a CIA, ex-CIA agent, and his name is Robert David Steele.
Right.
And he is talking about an electoral reform act, and he's trying to get Trump's attention to do that, which I think is such a good idea. It's going to unrig the system, because the system is rigged, obviously, with all of the consultants, the lobbyists working in the big power structures, all just feeding each other, being in bed with each other, and just doing business in Washington as usual. So the system's rigged. But as far as electoral reform and the electoral system, I mean, Hillary Clinton, and this just passed, just in the primary race, she stole 13 primaries from Bernie Sanders using electronic ballot tampering. Now that has to be reformed. That's happened in every election. We know that George Bush Jr. Won because of electronic voting tampering against what's his name? Well, he did against John Kerry, and he did as well against Al Gore. Both the times he never should have won. Yeah. He won by that, so that needs to be replaced and taken care of.
Yeah, that's one of the things. That's one of the things that Roger Stone really spearheaded during this election, and I think his efforts, probably, and what he did, and some of the stuff that went on with the Trump campaign to actually deal with electronic reform fraud, electronic voting machine fraud, and just voting fraud in general. They really, I think, stopped it, and I think that's the reason Trump actually got elected.
Yeah, but that's I think they did to some degree, just because they threatened about doing the exit polls and things like that.
Yeah.
But one thing that their Electoral Reform Act will free the members from all parties from the bribery and blackmail that's pervasive in U.S. politics. It'll just even the score, because really, honestly, it's like the Democratic Republican Party just control everything. I mean, there's no other parties can get in. They control all of the who gets in, who doesn't. I mean, it's like you said, pay to play. Who gets to run for the president, who gets to be a candidate, who doesn't. I mean, they control it. And both sides tried to get rid of Trump. I mean, the Republican Party especially tried to take him out with all their rules and regulations and what normally would work to shut out the outsider.
It has always worked.
But it didn't work for him,
yeah.
Which was great. But this does all need to be reformed, And so I think adding to Trump's, ethics reform, this needs to be in the ethics reform bill.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying.
It's funny. I was watching Clooney's movie, The Ides of March, the other day. It was a 2011 movie, but I just watched it the other day, and there was a character in there. There's two. The premise of the movie is that there are two Democratic governors that are competing for to win the primary to be the president, and they both are courting this Ohio senator who is demanding that whoever he's going to who promised them that he's going to hand over an ungodly amount of electors. For it pretty much would help them completely take it over in Ohio.
Yeah, and we did. I mean, we did. We saw them trying to buy out the electors in this election.
But they've always done that. That's part of the regular fare, and that's part of the regular fare that Trump is working on overtaking. I mean, even Clooney can make a movie about it. It's so normal,
Yeah, and the Lord's really just exposed it to the general population, because I think a lot of people didn't really pay attention or didn't know that was going on, and they overplayed their hand, and it was really. It was really exposed in this election cycle, which was great. All of their tactics, the Republican Party and all the crap that they do and all the rigging that they do and all of the, the bribery and the blackmail that they do, it was all just came out, and they just overplayed their hand, and they were so desperate to keep Trump out of there that they just were open about all of their skullduggery, and it was great. So everybody got to see who they really are and how the system really works. And that's one thing that I really liked about this election cycle.
Yeah, it's probably the first time it's ever happened. But I think
that it was exposed. It was under the radar until now.
Yeah.
Except for the people that knew about it.
Yeah, it was a gentleman's system. Everybody knows. We don't really talk about it. Some of the people know, we knew because we took political science classes in college, but it's like, regular people, they may not know. I mean, if you listen to Mark Dice, some of the stuff that the people that he talks to, they don't know anything. It's amazing how uneducated Americans are.
You don't.
So, I mean, sometimes I feel like
they don't care. They just don't care. They don't even care.
But, they listen to the mainstream media, who is really against Trump, too, because this system is really working for them as well. And
the whole system's rigged, just like Trump said. The whole system's rigged. We all know it.
So everyone's fighting crazy hard against him, and to impeach him, to shut him up, to get him out of there, because he really is doing the changes he said he was going to do, and this is one of them.
And like I said, the gravy train is leaving the building. All of their sweet deals, all of their consultant jobs, all that stuff is going out the door. And not that it hasn't all been put in place yet, but they're working on it.
At least we're hoping.
Great.
Yeah, well, at least we're hoping that actually does happen. We're praying.
Yeah, and Trump wants to make it legislation, because Bill Clinton, instituted that 5-year ban on lobbying for those in the executive branch. But then when he left, he did an executive order to repeal it. So it's like Trump wants it to be in Congress, a bill through Congress, so that an executive order can't nullify it. So I mean, that's one thing too. That's good. They're trying to get a bill through Congress.
Well, Clinton probably wanted to benefit and lobby. That's probably why he changed
did. He did.
Well, I was looking at something that the EU and the US and the IMF are, the Ukraine has come to the IMF to try to borrow money, and they have set up this ethics reform, 5-point ethics reform plan that the Ukraine has to go through before the U.S. and the EU and the IMF will allow them to do the money transfer. So this is their 5-point corruption rehabilitation plan. The first thing that they need to do is have public officials declare their assets to prevent conflicts of interest, which we saw Trump get raked over the coals, and he had to give his company to his sons because of that. So in a way, in the U.S. we did do that with him, but I've never seen that kind of accountability with any other president.
Well, they weren't businessmen; they were just political elite.
They were lawyers.
Hacks.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, Trump really he replaced all the political elites that were normally in a cabinet. They were just all political elites, lawyers, whatever. And let me finish. And he replaced them with businessmen and military people.
The Bushes were businessmen. They were oil men. They had assets.
No, I'm not saying they didn't have assets.
I'm just saying. We never saw this type of scrutiny over the Bushes, who have global interests. We never saw this kind of scrutiny over the Clintons, who have
I'm not disagreeing with you. Okay. I'm just saying what Trump did.
Right.
To get these people out of there that were corrupt.
Right.
And replaced his cabinet with military and businessmen.
Right.
So you were talking about his business.
Okay.
And how he had to.
Great. Okay, we'll move on. Okay, then the second one was they have to submit all government contracts to public scrutiny, which, what do they have to? I don't know what that looks like, if they have to put the contracts on the web on the internet so that people can read them, or have them open for a period of time. I don't know what that looks like, but they have to do that. I don't know if we do that. Do we do that? They have to investigate and prosecute.
I know the law legally. I mean, a bill has to be open to public scrutiny and review.
Yeah, bills do.
I don't know what else. I don't know what other things do, but I know a bill in Congress has to be.
They're talking about government contracts, which I don't think is legislation. But so then the third thing is to investigate and prosecute corruption. That happens sometimes, but it seems like there's been so much corruption, like with the Clintons and with so many government officials and so much that we found out, and because the mainstream media doesn't pick it up, and because there's just a lot of things that don't get, the corruption hasn't, I don't feel, has gotten prosecuted, and nobody's gone to jail. I mean, the Clintons have violated every single law with their foundation, and no trial, no nothing.
Yeah, talk to the Haitian people. They'll tell you.
They robbed the Haitian people of 90% of what they raised for them and used it for their own benefit, and blah blah blah. It goes on and on. But so I don't think that we've done that well. I don't think any country has done that well so far, except for Brazil. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. They require transparent political party financing. What do you think? How do you think we've been doing with that?
I don't think so at all. I think someone gets caught and they get slapped on the wrist and they move on. They haven't done anything. Congress hasn't done anything with that.
So, and then ensure access to information. Okay, if I've ever seen a censorship thing happening, it's now. I mean, all these people on the internet, you know, all the alt-right media getting censored, and you know, they're talking to the Ukraine. This is something the U.S., the EU, and the IMF are laying down for the Ukraine. But we really, these 5 points, we need to really do better, I think, in our own country.
I don't think we've done it at all in our country. I can't believe they're putting up the Ukraine to that standard.
Yeah.
When we haven't even started.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So anyway. So we wanted to give an example of what's happening with a country that actually has done ethics reform, where they're trying to do ethics reform, an incredibly corrupt country. We're talking about Brazil, where the levels of corruption in government are so deep and so thick, it looks like it makes, you know, New Orleans before the flood look like, you know, Disneyland. So anyway, so what? Just for you that don't know, probably everybody does, but what's been happening in the last couple of years in Brazil is there was their biggest oil company, it's called Petrobras, was making fake contracts with certain contractors, construction contractors, and the extra money that they made, they would pay off people in the they call it the Workers' Party. I'm assuming it's the Democratic Party, sort of the Labor Party there, and pretty obvious. But so anyway, they paid off a lot of officials to do their bidding and to get elected, and they basically owned the lower, you know, houses of the government, probably the upper houses too. I don't know, but one thing that happened, I had a business partner in Brazil who was from Rio last year. She lives here, but we were working with some Brazilian companies, and last year, at the end, you know, this time last year, really, it was in the spring, they had special prosecutors and legislators that were trying the political people that were involved in it, and the Petrobras brass that were involved in it. And I remember they were putting, like, last March, maybe April, they were putting like 4 people in jail a day. There was this hotshot prosecutor that was just on fire, and they were cleaning it out. They were cleaning out the government and things like that. And they got rid of Dilma Rousseff, who was the president, who replaced Lula, who was, I think, maybe more corrupt. I don't know. But my friend, my business partner, she in Rio, there was a gal who, you know, Brazil is very, very poor, extremely poor. It's the rich and the poor. It's a 2-class system, and the poor people are so poor that most of the children, the poorest children, they eat once a day and they only eat at their school lunch. Well, this particular bureaucrat had taken, or a political person, had taken the lunch money that was the money that was apportioned for the school lunches, and bought a yacht, bought a mansion in the hills, and I think she even bought a house in Angra, you know, vacation home in Angra. So it was just, I mean, they're just heartless people, heartless. But this is the level of corruption that we have in Brazil. So anyway, so this hotshot prosecutors was blowing through these, throwing people in jail left and right, which is something we need to see here, don't you think?
Yeah, and I think this elite, you know, that the ethics reform bill and this ethics reform would help that, and, you know, start at least getting some of these people that are, you know, have their vetted in bank accounts and are making money off the system, and, you know, just, you know, promoting special interests like with the Brazilian oil company and the oil companies and the big businesses just, you know, running our Congress. lining the pockets, like I said, like I said, of all of the congressmen and stuff like that. It would stop that because, our kids aren't eating either. Some of our kids aren't eating. 43 million Americans are on food stamps.
Yeah.
I mean, it's bad. And they've done it through corporate welfare and, moving these businesses out of the country, keeping the business tax high, and getting jobs out. And so it's basically like robbing the kids from their lunches. And, it's the same thing.
Yeah. There's corruption here, though, too, like in LA Unified School District. I have friends that are teachers. And, the buildings are so dilapidated in some of the towns. And the kids don't have books. They share books. Some of them don't have books. It's just the people in the school district, the higher ups, really, they're pocketing the money. And they're notorious for that.
Yeah, and a lot of the school funding,
it's very obvious.
Yeah, the school funding comes from property taxes, and LA has high property taxes.
Yeah.
So it's not like they don't have the funds to buy, to provide for the schools.
Yeah, but we're from Indiana, where the schools are good, the teachers are good, they're well paid, the schools are kept up, everybody has the materials that they need. I mean, Indiana is a great school system. We came up in the public school there, and it was awesome. And then when I moved out here. And I was going to substitute teach when I was in grad school, and I was like, I don't want to work. I don't want to work in the system. So I didn't. But anyway, so what's been happening in Brazil? I just want to say one thing, and we can talk about this. That happened in Brazil, and we were talking about the corruption and them getting rid of it and putting people in jail. But what happened? Do you remember in I think it was November when that Brazilian soccer team, their plane crashed, and it was a big deal, and everybody was mourning it. And do you remember that? Well, what happened during President Michael Timur decided that they were going to do a 3-day mourning period. It was like a holiday where they were going to just respectfully not do anything. Businesses weren't going to run, blah blah blah. Well, what happened? Well, legislators in the lower house, which is like our Congress, did a marathon session, and for 3 days, for the whole 3 days, they went to work. And they voted. And what they did is they watered down the anti-corruption legislation that had been made prior to that, because a lot of their buddies were getting thrown in jail, and they knew they were next. So they voted on this anti-corruption, and the people knew about it, and the people rioted when they found out about it. The people in Brazil. That's one thing I like about them. I don't like throwing bricks and everything like you see in France all the time, but at least they, that's how we feel. We go on the internet and scream about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm not advocating the violence, because if you look at the libtards, and we definitely don't want to look like them. But anyway, so what this legislation did was erode the authority of the special prosecutors and the judges that were putting all these people in jail. They just did this bill that stripped them of their power. And so that's one thing that concerns me about our government, is because many, probably most congressmen and senators like it how it is. They like the system. They like making the extra money. They've lived.
That's why they all fought so hard against Trump.
Yeah, and that's why they're still fighting. The people that have the most to lose, like Lindsey Graham and those guys. But probably.
Yeah, well, Lindsey Graham and John McCain have both been blackmailed by the CIA. I mean, once again, blackmail, corruption, bribery. I mean, it's just all, They pretty much are blackmailed to do. Then they do what they're told.
Yeah.
So
that's one thing I'm concerned about with Trump's 5-point plan. We got to really pray, and you who are intercessors out there and know how to do spiritual warfare, pray very hard that this can get through Congress and that he can get what he wants, because I know there's going to be a lot of people trying to block it, because it's going to go against the grain of what they're, like you said, their gravy train has left the building. And
I want to add to that the Electoral Reform Act too. I mean, that is so necessary.
Yeah.
Too. I mean, that'll get rid of the two-party corruption.
Yeah.
And monopoly that they have on our political system, and pay to play gets to play.
Yeah. So Kathy, do you want to talk a little bit about how the Lord cleanses, the evil in the land?
Yeah.
Kind of how he does that?
Yeah, he does it. He gets it to the point. He gets it just like what he's doing now. The Lord is doing it now. You know, just like in Brazil. I mean, they get to a point of utter corruption, and it's like the cup is full. And the Lord's got a lot of mercy on people, but when He's done, and He brings the hammer down. And you know, it's we read the scriptures, and you know, like these people that are sitting in their comfortable palaces, these palaces are going to be broken. The women are going to have bald heads, and their jewels, you know, are going to be taken from them. And you know, it's just like, you know, they're going to be weeping and mourning for their children. I mean, it's just like these people that are murdering and doing wicked things to mankind and rigging systems to keep themselves in power at the expense of everybody else, not caring about humanity or the environment or anything. They're gonna reap what they sow. It will come back, and it wouldn't even necessarily be the Lord's hand doing it. He's just allowing the natural sowing and reaping coming back on them. When there's so much evil is built up to that point, there's a breaking point in the spirit, you know, and that's just natural energy realm stuff, you know. So they're getting theirs now. But I mean, God is sovereign, and He is over it, and He has the timing for it. But the time is now for this to get taken care of. So Christy and I really believe that this is good. This stuff's going to get passed. The stuff that, you know, the ethics reform will happen. You know, because they always say they're going to do it, but it's just lip service. They've never actually done it. No Congress ever wanted their, you know, they didn't want their gravy train.
Yeah, they've never passed hardly anything, even on campaign
No, I mean,
reform.
they wouldn't do it. But you know, there's new people in Congress. There's some new blood, but you know, God's doing it, so it's going to happen.
Yeah.
At a great level, and we're just believing that over the next 4 years, we're going to see this stuff. I mean, we're going to see more shakedowns. We're going to see more stuff exposing, because the Lord says everything, all darkness He brings to the light, and stuff is coming to the light on all these guys and gals from both sides of the aisle, you know, from all walks of life. So there's nowhere to run. There's nowhere to hide for these guys.
Yeah.
It's, you know, we believe that it's coming. We see it starting, and it's just going to snowball and get worse for them.
One thing great about the Lord is He brings judgment as correction. He doesn't bring judgment, He brings correction. If someone has to go to jail to learn their lessons, then He'll do that. You know, if someone has to, whatever, He'll allow that to happen. He doesn't do bad things. He just allows the natural
sowing and reaping process.
Sowing and reaping, the natural consequences to fall on us. You know, sometimes He holds them back, but then after too long, and then He's merciful. So we're really thankful that He's a merciful God, and that He brings correction, but then He brings restoration. And all of the places where He told Israel that He was going to judge them and tear down the haughty and the violent and the people that were full of bloodshed, He was going to tear them down. But then He was going to bless. Then He was going to, after He gets them down to ground zero, to a place where they can listen and where they can rest and hear Him. Then He builds them back up, and then He brings blessing, and He brings, you know, great things. He's a good God, and He's so kind, and He's always does the right thing. And I'm so grateful that He brought Trump in as the cleaner, but He didn't bring in, you know, He didn't bring so much vast judgment like a nuclear. I mean, allow horrible things to happen to us. You know, great natural disasters or things like that. He's given us a shot. I think He's judging the system.
He's judging the system. I don't think the Americans necessarily need a judge. I think the system needed judged. Yeah. And that's what's getting cleansed.
But sometimes even in the Old Testament, when we see this, you know, the judgment, even you know, I won't say the innocent, but other people got, you know, swept in the fray. They were probably maybe agreeing with it or part of it or whatever. But He could have allowed that. He's done it in the past historically, but He didn't. He's bringing change and good stuff, and you know, people that aren't interested in the change are fighting hard. So
Kelly, they have a lot to lose.
They're part of. So you want to pray?
Yeah,
for a second. Go ahead, pray, Kathy.
Okay, Lord, well, we just thank You that You are in the business of change right now, and there's a lot of stuff shifting and moving around. You brought in the kingdom age, so we thank You for that, and we thank You that Your order is being established. Just like we talked about last time, how everything that is perverted is being turned back around. That's what's happening. The corruption that was called good is now going to be called evil and going to get judged, and people are going to go to jail. And we thank you for that, Lord. So we just thank you that, that you want to reform the government too, and the government processes. And that's what we were talking about today, to deal with the corruption and the corrupt system in the government, so that there's good governance over people. So there's proper, right, godly, good, fair, governance, and for the people, and not just for those in power, and continuing to stay in power, and fellowship with their bedfellows, the corporate interests, whoever else. So with big banks and Wall Street. So we thank you for that, Lord.
Yes.
We thank you that you're changing that, and we're seeing that, and that is one thing that we will see rooted out of this country.
Yes.
Thank you for that, Lord.
And Lord, we thank you for the shakedown. We thank you for shaking it down. And we receive it, Lord. We thank you that no stone will go unturned, Lord. You're going to go to the very heart of this corruption. You're going to turn it upside down. People are going to get prosecuted, like Kathy said. You are going to bring judgment. You are going to bring correction. And we're going to see it, Lord. We know that they're not going to get out of it this time. We know you're merciful, but this has to change. So we thank you for that, Lord. And we'll give you all the glory and honor and the praise for doing the good things that you do.
Yes, Lord.
So, well, we thank you for watching, and I know some of you have told us that you learn stuff when you watch us, so we are glad about it. Kathy and I are both educators. So we thank you, we bless that, and we just hope that you have a good week, and hopefully we'll see you again next week. Have a good night.